A long time ago, in a land far, far away, a much younger Drake, who will get to the point very quickly, I promise, went to see a movie in theaters. You know, theaters. Those things you used to go to and have a reasonable night out with your family and enjoy a non-complex movie. Okay, now that I'm done dating myself, I went to see this movie with my family called Cursed. If you have not seen this delightfully cheesy movie, I definitely recommend looking it up. Honestly, there wasn't anything really all that special about this B-rate cult classic. It had Christina Ricci and a werewolf. Pretty fun, pretty easygoing. Nice popcorn movie. What stuck with me was actually on the way out of the theater. My Papa Bear turned to me and said he really enjoyed the movie because you didn't see the monster until you needed it. And looking back, yeah, you see the snout, you see a claw. Basically, even though the movie was relying on humor, it still trusted the audience's intelligence to help paint a picture and build up the monster. But while recently watching Five Nights at Freddy's for my interview with Christine Husum, I noticed that they broke this cardinal rule. We see the monster well in advance and in full color. And yet people love Five Nights at Freddy's. It's got a huge following. Is that just because of the video game it was spawned from, or is there more to this? How do we reveal the monster? How do we keep our monsters entertaining for the audience? Does genre have anything to do with this? And are there any hard, fast rules that make for a good monster reveal? To that end, I ask you to welcome back horror, psycho, and sci-fi fiction writer, Joe Prosit. So kind of what started this one is kind of an interesting thing. I was watching Five Nights at Freddy for my last interview with Christine Husum, and I noticed this very strange thing where Five Nights at Freddy gives you this monster reveal that doesn't feel like a monster reveal because you've already seen it, but still kind of leaves you in suspense. So let's go and watch that particular clip, and then I'd like your take on it.
We see the animatronics, we see them early and we see them often and we see them whole, right? Both in the other two clips we'll talk about, Damsel and Jaws, we kind of get this incremental partial reveal, like here's the dragon's tails, here's the shark's fins. And we don't get that with Five Nights at Freddy, and we don't really have that buildup of dread because we kind of see them from the start. I think that movie was made to appease a established fan base who are deep in the lore and very familiar with what all these characters look like. And it was much more about give the people what they want, which means screen time for these characters, than it is about building a movie that is truly dread-inducing and fear-inducing. And I watched some of the playthrough of the games, because this franchise started out as kind of these survival games, and it was a lot of jump scares.
Right.
And you kind of got these like snippets of like, okay, here's the characters behind a curtain, they're in black and white, or it's down the hall and there's a flickering light, you don't get a good look at them. See some of that in the movie, but it doesn't have the same effect. And I think a big part of it is that scene where like the goons are going to bust in to the pizza place and smash up the joint. They're not our protagonist. So when the reveal comes to the audience, you know, of seeing the animatronics being mobile, being dangerous, being lethal, we're not sharing that experience with the protagonist. So by the time the protagonist has that, oh, here's the monster, here's what they look like moment, I think it's lost a lot of the teeth because we, the audience, already have seen what they're capable of in a very clear way. It numbs the sting of when our protagonist faces this threat. Like there's that scene where, his little sister's there, and they're kind of having like a sleepover. And it's like, okay, are these things even a threat anymore? Like, I know we've seen them kill people, but so much of that tension is relieved in not a good way.
The principle of this is exactly what you described. It's the fact that we see this monster ahead of time. I actually found it did work for me.
Okay.
But it was a context thing. Again, art's so subjective. I love having guests on because it makes me question my thought process and makes me consider it from another angle versus me just blathering, which we both know I can do. And the reason it did work for me actually was the fact that, yes, we do see them in full motion ahead of time. And frankly, they're a little unnerving from the get-go. She presses the button and hears these animal singing things. And I'm like, dude, Chuck E. Cheese creeped me out as a kid. This is not doing any better. I'm sorry. Yep. No. And there's just this unnerving feeling of like, what is going on with these things, right? And then suddenly you do see them moving and doing the creepy thing, and they're in shadow and they're in silhouette and they're not these happy, bright colors. Mm-hmm. And so you get that monster feeling that makes them feel completely different than what you saw 5 minutes ago. And then coming back to the girl, they show that colorful being again. It's like, what's going on here? So it left me in suspense more than it left me in jump scare.
Yeah. And from what I've just watched the playthroughs of the game, it feels like it was better done in the game, because there's much more of that quiet contemplation and anticipation and waiting for these things. And you kind of know that it's coming, but you don't know when. One of the things that I think a lot about is Hitchcock's Bomb Under the Table. For listeners who aren't familiar with it, the idea is if you have 4 guys sitting around a table and they're talking about baseball and it's a pointless conversation, and then suddenly a bomb explodes, you have shock, right? You have 10 seconds of like, oh my goodness, this thing happened. What's going on? But if you let the audience know beforehand that there's a bomb underneath the table, now that 5 minutes of otherwise boring dialogue about a baseball game is really compelling because you're involved and you're saying, no, stop talking about baseball. There's a bomb in the room. You got to do something.
Someone tie your shoes or something, right?
Yeah. So it's about when we choose to provide information, right? And who we provide that information with. And I've kind of thought about it and extrapolated from there. There's really like 3 different kinds of suspense that I think about when I start shaping a scene. Protagonist suspense or character suspense, where the audience knows something, like we know there's a bomb under the table. The characters don't. The characters are in suspense, right? And then there's the opposite, where the reader is in suspense and the character knows something, the readers maybe don't. Where Ocean's 11, they know what the plan is, and now they start executing it, and we just get to figure out what the plan is while they carry it out.
Yeah, well, say we do all that. We're just supposed to walk out of there with $150 million in cash on us without getting stopped?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
And then the third form of suspense, which I think works really well in the Jaws scene that we'll talk about, is a shared suspense, where both we and the protagonist have suspicions, we have threats, we know something bad is out there, but we don't know what, or we don't have all the full information. And when we share that together, I think that can be really effective. I think all 3 can be really effective at different times and for different reasons.
No, I like that. It makes a lot of sense. You kind of dove right into the next movie, though, but still, let's go ahead and look at the classic and honor the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Shut off that engine.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
You're gonna need a bigger boat, right?
My husband's been trying to get me to watch this forever. I'm not a fan of 70s and 80s acting. I find it very distracting. It makes it hard for me to get immersed in the story. But he's been wanting me to watch this. He's raved and ranted that this is just a masterpiece. I trust his judgment. I just didn't want to watch the damn movie. And so thank you for the excuse, because I think this actually helped him and I bridge a conversation on why we like different things. And leading up to this scene, I was just like, what the F? And a lot of it was, like you said, a little bit of the shark here, the underwater blurry there, blah, blah, blah.
I, for one, love 70s and 80s, like old man movies. It's kind of breaking the rules of story structure and pacing, but there's this really quiet scene where the three guys in the boat are kind of swapping. Yeah, they're swapping stories about their scars and tattoos, and it really lets this breathe and kind of lulls you into a false sense of security, and then it ramps up.
Well, also, it built the captain character so well, and this is something my husband noted as we're watching. I was teasing. I'm like, you guys actually talk like that when women are around, don't you? He's like, yep, that's exactly how we talk.
Yep.
But the minute the captain started saying all the sad things about his past and I was like, oh, they just showed that he's got kind of a suicidal ideation without the follow through. And that's not to be unkind. That's something that some people do have, is self-destructive tendencies without the actual, willingness to pull a trigger, for lack of a nicer term. And then the minute they showed that, I went, he's gonna die.
It's great character work. Quinn is one of the funnest characters because he comes off, in that opening scene where he's, scratches his fingernails on the chalkboard and kind of as this menacing old man in the back of the room. It's pretty troped out now, like the old scary guy telling the townsfolk how they don't know what they're dealing with, and etc. Maybe this movie is the source of that trope, but to go from that to that very available moment when he starts actually sharing his feelings and his history, such cool character work.
Well, the other thing that I noticed with this is not the first time we've seen this shark. The first time that we see the shark's face, if you will, is in the pond. And that part has so much suspense because the little boy's in there. It's someone we're emotionally attached to, but it's still just a glimpse. And then finally we get this other little glimpse. We never see this whole damn shark, and it just makes you want to see the shark.
Spielberg wanted to include a lot more of the shark in the movie because it only has like 3 or 4 minutes of screen time. But the thing was such a technological nightmare. This big, giant, robotic, underwater, bloated shark, and its foam skin was peeling off. They just couldn't use a lot of the footage. So they almost stumbled into less and less screen time, more and more suspense. It's almost happenstance that we had the movie that we got. But I think it's really cool. And I think if they had a great working shark animatronic and they started using it from the opening scene all the way through the movie, it would have been way less effective.
And I think there's something to be said for that. Between both of these clips, like there's something to be said for the first clip. We're kind of talking about play to your audience, right? That's why Five Nights at Freddy's is so popular. You're playing to your audience, and therefore the audience wants to see these animatronics. If you're not doing that, you're gonna flop. In the second one, you're playing to your audience as in giving them the same feeling that the character does. Again, building the empathy of wanting to find the shark. If the audience has found the shark, well, it's kind of useless. So I think there's something to be said there about like killing your darlings and being willing to edit out. Like if this was a written script or a written book, right? A novel.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of scenes describing the shark, you and I'd probably be like, got that. I should probably stop using the word gut because then I'll have to use a bunch of footage of chumming during this video.
And there's something cool that happens with the you're going to need a bigger boat scene. The thing that I love about that reveal is it immediately changes Brody. It immediately changes his take on the whole situation. Because from that moment on, he says it 2 more times. So 3 total. We're going to get a bigger boat, right? Like we need a bigger boat. And the other 2 guys think they got what they need. But for him, he's like, no, this is a game changer. Our initial plan is not going to work out. We need to do something different. So it's a reveal, not just in a like jump square, this is what the character looks like sort of thing. It's a reveal in that whatever actions they were willing to take before, they need to up the ante.
It's a combination, and this is something we talk about a lot on the channel, where it's like you cannot have one scene that just serves one purpose. It's physically impossible, and if you try, your writing's going to suck. But this scene, it does the monster reveal, still keeping you in that suspense, still keeping you in the dark, while simultaneously giving you good characterization. Like you said, the two
Yeah.
who are experienced, one is I believe he's a marine biologist. One is a,
Like
a
a seasoned
fisherman.
shark hunter,
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
Quinn is.
Exactly. But you even see this where when he's on the boat, he's like kind of measuring the shark with his eyes, even though this thing's under murky water and blah, blah. He's like, yeah, that's about this big and da, da, da. So he's not even remotely surprised when this thing comes up. And
Right.
our guy's
Right.
like, what is that? It's a lack of experience and knowledge.
Yeah, Hooper, the marine biologist, they catch that shark, the other shark, early in the movie, and immediately he's like, "Nope, this ain't the same shark. It's not big enough. It needs to be this big." So he has that knowledge, but Brody is our window to the rest of the characters, right? Because we're inexperienced. We don't know how big this shark is going to be. And then once we get to that point, that reveal experience with Brody, we're like, nope, that's a ridiculously big shark. What they're trying to do isn't going to work. They need to make changes.
This goes a little off the topic of the monster reveal, but again, you can't talk about writing without kind of divulging, right? When it gets to the pond shark attack, and the sheriff has finally had enough is enough. I'm drawing my line, kind of like what we talked about in our masculinity panel with, men draw a line in the sand. This is his line. He's finally done. And you see the mayor just kind of shaken up. And for a minute there, you think he's about to blubber out some excuse.
Yeah.
And all he says is, my kids were in that pond too. Which is such a nice, subtle way of saying, I really, truly thought this was safe.
Yeah.
I loved that line. It was so beautiful. It was so eloquent. It didn't excuse him, but it showed so much depth for such a character that I absolutely hate.
Right. And that's great writing, right? Is even the guy we're meant to hate, to show him having depth and having care and not just being a mascot of one specific emotion.
He's not twisting his mustache over there.
Right.
No, that was actually the big thing that my husband pointed out throughout this whole thing. And I have to agree. The writing of older movies is far more willing to be subtle. It trusted the audience's intelligence. Like Five Nights at Freddy's, I did enjoy. I know you're saying, not for me. I did like a lot of the complexities and I liked the character growth and the character arc. But I can admit it is much more of a sledgehammer than Jaws. Whereas this one, it's like, no, it's really, you have to pay attention to what people are saying and doing to understand what's going on. You're not going to get like, spoon-fed anything.
I think it's fair to mention that it's two different audiences, right? Like Five Nights at Freddy's is kind of YA horror, I guess I would call it. And Jaws is, I would call it adult. I think it's aimed at adults. So I think there's more trust. There's more work that's allowed to be done by the audience.
And finally, we have an example from a completely different genre. It's not horror. It's not thriller. This is a fantasy with Damsel.
You poor thing. What happened to you? Give me strength, Mother.
little bird, speak your name.
Elodie.
L-O-D. Exciting.
What do you want?
I want what is promised. What is owed. Every generation, your kind must pay.
My kind.
The scent of royalty betrays you. It's in your blood. Now, my favorite part.
Pretty much every movie actually on this list is something that I watched because of my husband. I'm just gonna be real. I thought it was gonna be another boring, strong female character, blah, 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 pandering nonsense. The girl defeats the dragon, cool, whatever, don't care. I think what I like about this scene, I don't know if you saw back to like the first hint of the dragon is not the dragon. It's the birds on fire that just
Oh, that's
swarm this
right.
thing and terrify her. And so you've
Yeah.
got this lasting image. She has a very good reason to be distracted because it's like, where the hell they come from?
Mhm.
And this thing has the ability to sneak up on her. And suddenly you just have this silhouette talking to her.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about respecting your audience. And like you mentioned, having some faith in them that they can paint the rest of that picture. And especially in writing, I think it's even more important because we don't have that tool of like a big reveal.
We're going to give them a little piece here and there. You cannot describe the whole thing, or you're going to take a whole chapter describing your dragon or your shark,
Right.
whatever it is.
Okay, so Michael Crichton writes Jurassic Park, and then Spielberg makes the movie. And when I think of Jurassic Park, I think of, the T-Rex coming out of the paddock and that fantastic shot of it, in the water with the Jeep out there. Great filmmaking.
Boom, boom, right? Yep.
Yeah. Michael Crichton didn't have that tool in his toolbox of painting this so visual a picture. We in prose, we describe visual things.
But we also have to describe the emotions. Like we have a lot of groundwork we have to set up to make it work.
Yeah. And I think just describing as accurately as you could, it would be boring. It wouldn't be that interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a T-Rex. We all kind of know what a T-Rex looks like, just like a shark. We all know what a shark looks like, but it's how that information is managed and how it's revealed. And then especially in that Jurassic Park shot, it's just the coolness. It just looked cool. And
it looks cool, and they still did keep it a little bit like at first you go to the padlock, you think you're about to see it, you don't. It never shows up. And then when it does show up, it's a threat, and you see a foot, you see a fence break, you see the stuff basically that the characters are scared of. And I think that if you were writing it, that's also where you'd be focusing is you hear the snap of the fence. Oh God, what's that? I saw this foot. Holy crap, that foot's gonna kill me. Whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you're right. Don't just describe the sound of the foot, landing in the mud. You describe the character's reaction to the sound of the foot landing in the mud.
So kind of what I'm hearing throughout these examples for Murte, because again, I don't do a lot of monster reveals. I think I've done one technical monster reveal in book 2. But what I'm hearing basically is you kind of want to keep your cards close to your chest, not because you're trying to manipulate the audience or, intimidate the audience, but really because you want the audience to be invested. And you want them to be doing a little bit of the mental work so that they care.
Right. And there's an interesting balance, especially when it comes to writing, because I want my ideas to be conveyed to the reader as clearly as possible, right? I don't want to confuse them. I want them to be fully immersed. I want them to understand how the characters feel, what the characters are seeing, hearing, what this environment is like. So I want to be clear, and I don't want to be unnecessarily cryptic. But then I do want to control when we find things out, when those twists happen. but I love a good reveal when a character notices something in scene. Maybe they find a piece of evidence that reveals that the person they trusted is suddenly not the person who they should trust. Those I find way more effective because we find it out simultaneously with the protagonist.
I know what you're talking about because it's obviously not visual, but that's something I do with book one. I know you read that a while ago, but I've seen that a lot in mystery stories. Funny enough, one of the movies I reviewed with Christine was Knives Out.
Yep.
And that definitely has a moment of you should not have been along this person's side the entire time. This person was pulling one over on you. Anyone who is curious about that interview, by the way, I'll make sure to link up in the corner. Now, speaking of monster reveals, you and I have our own little monster reveal coming up here in September in a book.
Yeah, Twisted Yuletide, Anthology of the Damed, coming out just in time for Christmas. I think that's going to be really great. I'm blown away by how good it looks. Full color illustrations inside. It's got the foil on the cover, the printed pages on the side. It looks like
it's
really
shiny, legitimately shiny.
It's like a good looking book.
I know.
So on
and
top
I've
of all
worked
that,
with this publisher a couple times, so I'm not surprised, but I'm still impressed. He does good.
Yeah.
The Anthology of the Damed, Twisted Yuletide, is going to be up on BackerKit. I'll make sure that is linked down below. And if it is already out for sale, then these links will be updated to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all of that jazz. If you care to support both me, Joe, and a bunch of other fantastic authors, including some bestsellers.
Bunch of cool writers in this book. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to get my own hands on it.
I know, it's gorgeous. And if people are just looking to support you and your fiction, where might they find you?
I am at www.joeprosit, that's PROSIT.com. So real easy to find. Google me, and I'm on all the social medias, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the X, the Twitters, you name it.
So what do you guys think? Is there a monster reveal that sticks in your mind? Something that you talked about well after you saw or read about it? And what made that interesting for you? Don't forget, if you like these video essays and interviews, please make sure that you are commenting, liking, and subscribing. The channel's still growing, even over on Spotify and Rumble, and I really appreciate that. And if you'd like to support myself, Joe Prosit, and many other authors, please check out Anthology of Horror, Yuletide Terror. As always, thank you so much for joining us, and happy writing.